Hello everybody. Good afternoon. Today I want to talk to you about something that sounds extreme on the surface, but when you really understand the biology behind it, it starts to make a lot of sense. And that is eating one meal a day, what people now call OMAD. Before I begin today's informative lecture, I want you to hit that subscribe button if you're new to my YouTube channel. And if you find this session helpful, share it with your loved ones. Now let me be very clear from the start. OMAD is not a crash diet. It is not a punishment. It is not about starving yourself or suffering through hunger. OMAD is a metabolic and hormonal reprogramming strategy. And when done correctly, it taps into pathways your body has relied on for most of human history. The idea that we are supposed to eat every 2 to 3 hours is a very modern concept. It did not exist for the vast majority of human evolution. Our ancestors did not wake up and ask what's for breakfast, second breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and dessert. Food availability was unpredictable. There were periods of eating, and there were long periods of not eating. And the human body evolved not just to tolerate that, but to thrive in it. Yet today we've been taught that constant eating is necessary to keep our metabolism going, to prevent low blood sugar, and to protect muscle mass. And despite following this advice, we are seeing record levels of obesity, diabetes, fatty liver disease, inflammation, heart disease, and even cognitive decline. So clearly, something doesn't add up. What OMAD does is challenge the idea that metabolism depends on constant intake. In reality, metabolism depends on hormonal signaling. And the most important hormone in this discussion is insulin. Every time you eat, insulin rises. Insulin's job is to store energy. It tells your body fuel is coming in, stop burning fat. Store what you can. When insulin is elevated all day long, from frequent meals and snacks, you lock your body into storage mode. Fat becomes inaccessible. Repair processes shut down. Inflammation quietly builds. OMAD changes that signal. By compressing your eating into a single daily window, insulin drops for most of the day. And when insulin drops, a cascade of very powerful biological processes begins to unfold. Your body gains access to stored fat. Ketones begin to rise. Cellular repair systems turn back on. Mitochondria become more efficient. The brain receives a cleaner, more stable fuel source. This is not deprivation. This is access. Think of your body like a hybrid engine. It can run on sugar or it can run on fat. Constant eating traps you in sugar mode. OMAD retrains the engine to switch seamlessly between fuels. That flexibility is metabolic health. If you're still here with me, comment below the word yes, and I'll know how many of you are serious about this session today. And if you're enjoying the value so far, please hit that subscribe button and leave me a like on this video. It will give me motivation to create more sessions regularly. Now, OMAD is not for everyone, and we'll talk about that in detail. It requires intention, nutrient density, and respect for the body's signals. But for the right person, done the right way, it can be profoundly transformative, not just for weight, but for inflammation, mental clarity, insulin resistance, and long-term disease risk. So in this talk, I want to walk you through exactly what happens inside your body when you eat one meal a day, step by step, hormone by hormone, cell by cell. Once you understand the science, the fear disappears. And what you're left with is clarity. So now let's walk through what actually happens in your body once you stop eating multiple times a day and shift into one meal a day. This is where the real biology begins, and this is where many people misunderstand what fasting is doing. The moment you finish your single meal, insulin rises. That's normal. Insulin is not the enemy. It is a storage hormone, and its job is to deal with incoming nutrients. For a few hours after eating, your body is in what we call the fed state. Glucose is used, glycogen is replenished, amino acids are directed toward repair and muscle maintenance. But here is the key difference with OMAD. Because you are not eating again a few hours later, insulin is allowed to fall. And when insulin falls, something remarkable happens. Your body gains access to stored energy. Think of insulin as a lock on your fat vault. As long as insulin is high, the vault stays closed. With frequent meals, insulin never truly drops, so fat remains trapped, even if you have plenty of it stored. This is why so many people feel tired, hungry, and stuck despite excess body fat. They are energy rich but metabolically locked. With OMAD, insulin falls for most of the day. As it falls, the fat vault opens. Fat cells begin releasing fatty acids into the bloodstream. These fatty acids are taken up by muscles, the liver, and other tissues and used for fuel. This is the moment people often describe as burning fat, but it's more accurate to say the body is regaining access to its own energy reserves. Now, as fat breakdown increases, the liver begins converting some of those fatty acids into ketones. Ketones are not a backup fuel, they are a premium fuel, especially for the brain. They burn cleaner than glucose, produce fewer reactive oxygen species, and provide a steady, reliable source of energy. This is why many people notice improved mental clarity, reduced brain fog, and more stable energy when they adapt to OMAD. The brain loves ketones, but there's more happening beneath the surface. As insulin stays low, another major pathway is suppressed, mTOR. mTOR is the growth and building signal. When mTOR is active, the body prioritizes growth over repair. When mTOR quiets down, repair pathways come online. This is where autophagy begins to increase. Autophagy is the cell's internal cleanup system. Damaged proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and cellular debris are broken down and recycled. Think of it as a cleanup crew that only shows up when the factory shuts down production for the night. Constant eating keeps the factory running. OMAD finally allows maintenance to begin. At the same time, AMPK, the cellular energy sensor, is activated. AMPK tells the cell, energy is scarce, become efficient. This leads to improved mitochondrial function, increased fat oxidation, and enhanced insulin sensitivity. In other words, your cells become better engines. This transition does not happen overnight. The body needs time to adapt. Hunger hormones like ghrelin are retrained. Energy pathways are rewired. This is why the first 1 to 2 weeks can feel challenging, but then suddenly it becomes easy. That ease is not willpower. It is biology adapting, and this is only the beginning of the OMAD cascade. Next we'll talk about ketosis, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and why OMAD can profoundly affect mood, focus, and even long-term brain health. Now, once your body has regained access to fat and ketone production increases, the effects are not limited to weight or metabolism. One of the most profound changes occurs in the brain. Your brain is an energy-intensive organ. It consumes a significant portion of your daily fuel, and it is extremely sensitive to fluctuations in blood sugar. When you eat frequently, especially refined carbohydrates, your brain rides a metabolic roller coaster. Glucose spikes, insulin rises, glucose crashes, and hunger and fatigue follow. Ketones change that dynamic entirely. Ketones provide a steady, clean-burning fuel source for neurons. They cross the blood-brain barrier easily and do not require insulin for uptake. This alone reduces metabolic stress on the brain. But beyond energy, ketones also act as signaling molecules. One of the most important signals they stimulate is the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF is often described as fertilizer for the brain. It supports the growth of new neurons, strengthens existing connections, and improves synaptic plasticity. Higher BDNF levels are associated with better memory, improved learning, emotional resilience, and reduced risk of neurodegenerative diseases. This is why fasting and exercise, both of which increase ketones, have such powerful cognitive effects. In my practice, I've seen patients report improvements in focus, mood stability, and even relief from anxiety and depressive symptoms once they adapt to a fasting lifestyle. And this makes sense physiologically. Chronic hyperinsulinemia and inflammation impair brain signaling. Ketones and BDNF restore it. Think of glucose as fast-burning paper and ketones as slow-burning hardwood. Both can provide heat, but one does it cleanly and steadily without constant replenishment. Now, this is also where OMAD gets misunderstood. People assume ketosis equals starvation. That is not true. Starvation occurs when energy stores are depleted and the body begins breaking down vital tissues to survive. Ketosis occurs when energy stores are abundant but insulin is low, allowing access to those stores. There is a big difference. In a metabolically healthy individual with adequate fat stores, ketosis is a normal physiological state. Humans have entered ketosis repeatedly throughout evolution during periods between meals or food scarcity. The body is well equipped to handle it. As ketosis deepens with OMAD, inflammation throughout the body begins to decrease. Ketones inhibit inflammatory signaling pathways and reduce oxidative stress. This has downstream effects on blood vessels, joints, and even immune regulation. At the same time, growth hormone levels rise. Growth hormone helps preserve lean muscle mass during fasting, supports fat metabolism, and aids in tissue repair. This is why properly done fasting does not automatically cause muscle loss, despite what many fear. The body becomes smarter about fuel use. And as ketones and growth hormone increase, autophagy continues to ramp up. Damaged mitochondria are removed through a specialized process called mitophagy. New, more efficient mitochondria are produced. This improves cellular energy production and reduces metabolic noise. You can think of this as upgrading your internal power plants. This is where metabolic flexibility truly develops. The body learns to move effortlessly between fuel sources depending on availability. That flexibility is the opposite of metabolic disease. Now we'll talk about the deeper cellular repair processes activated by OMAD, how autophagy differs from starvation, and why timing, not deprivation, is the key to long-term benefit. But before that, tell me in the comments, have you ever tried doing OMAD fasting? Please share your experience in the comments. It helps more people than you think. Also, if you're enjoying the lecture so far, leave me a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button if you still haven't. As OMAD continues to keep insulin low for most of the day, the body shifts from a growth-dominant state into a repair-dominant state. This is where one of the most important processes in human biology becomes active: autophagy. Autophagy literally means self-eating, but that term is misleading. This is not self-destruction, this is self-renewal. Inside every cell, waste accumulates over time, proteins misfold, mitochondria become inefficient, cellular components wear out. Under constant feeding, these damaged parts linger because the cell is focused on growth, not maintenance. OMAD creates the metabolic environment where cleanup becomes the priority. When insulin and mTOR remain suppressed for extended periods, autophagy accelerates. The cell identifies damaged components, breaks them down, and recycles the raw materials to build new functional structures. This process improves cellular efficiency, reduces inflammation, and enhances resilience. One particularly important aspect of autophagy is mitophagy, the selective removal of damaged mitochondria. Faulty mitochondria generate excess reactive oxygen species, which damage DNA and promote chronic inflammation. By clearing these dysfunctional mitochondria, the cell reduces oxidative stress and improves energy production. This matters because chronic inflammation is a root driver of aging, cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, and cancer. Cancer does not begin as a sudden event. It develops over years through accumulated cellular damage, impaired repair mechanisms, and dysregulated growth signals. Autophagy acts as a quality control system that removes damaged cells before they become dangerous. This is why autophagy is not about weight loss. It is about cellular health. Now again, this is where people confuse autophagy with starvation. In starvation, nutrient stores are depleted, and the body is forced to break down essential tissue. In autophagy, the body selectively recycles damaged components while preserving function. The difference lies in hormonal context. In OMAD, insulin is low, growth hormone is high, and fat stores provide ample energy. Muscle tissue is protected, vital organs are preserved, repair processes dominate. Starvation lacks this balance. This distinction is critical, and it's why OMAD must be approached intelligently. Nutrient density matters. Protein adequacy matters. Micronutrients matter. One poor quality meal a day is not a health strategy. But when done correctly, OMAD allows the body to enter repair mode daily, not occasionally. Inflammation markers tend to decline. Immune regulation improves. Insulin sensitivity is restored. The gut lining has time to heal. Even the brain benefits from reduced inflammatory signaling. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. Repair during scarcity, growth during abundance. Modern life has inverted that rhythm. OMAD restores it. This does not mean longer is always better. More fasting is not always healthier. There is a sweet spot where repair is maximized and stress remains adaptive rather than harmful. If you're still listening to me, comment below, "I'm listening, doctor," and I'll know how many of you are still here with me in this session. And if you think what I say makes sense, please leave me a like on this video and hit that subscribe button. Now I want to talk honestly about who OMAD is for, who it is not for, and why context matters more than ideology. Because like any powerful tool, OMAD can heal or harm depending on how it's used. OMAD tends to work best for people who already suffer from metabolic overload. These are individuals with insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes under supervision, obesity, fatty liver disease, chronic inflammation, or constant hunger driven by unstable blood sugar. For them, eating less often isn't deprivation, it's relief. Their bodies are already overwhelmed by constant insulin signals, and OMAD finally gives metabolism a chance to breathe. When insulin stays elevated all day from frequent meals, fat remains locked in storage and energy becomes unreliable. Hunger follows quickly because the body cannot access its backup fuel. OMAD breaks that cycle by allowing insulin to fall for extended periods, opening the fat vault, activating repair systems, and restoring hormonal rhythm. For many people, this feels like freedom rather than struggle. OMAD can also suit individuals who prefer simplicity. Some people feel mentally sharper when they're not digesting all day. Others thrive on routine and dislike constant food decisions. Once fat adapted, many report steady energy, reduced cravings, and improved focus. In these cases, OMAD isn't forced discipline. It becomes natural. But here's where responsibility comes in. OMAD is not appropriate for everyone. If someone is underweight, pregnant, breastfeeding, recovering from an eating disorder, or dealing with medical conditions that require frequent nourishment, OMAD can be harmful. This isn't a failure of willpower, it's biology. Children and adolescents should not practice OMAD either, because growth requires frequent anabolic signals. Fasting is about repair and efficiency, not growth and development. Another common mistake is misunderstanding what one meal actually means. OMAD is not permission to eat anything you want once a day. One ultra-processed meal cannot replace real nutrition. When you eat once, every bite carries more responsibility. Protein must be sufficient to protect muscle. Micronutrients must be dense enough to support cellular function. Fats should be real, and carbohydrates should come from fibrous whole sources. Digestive capacity also matters. The stomach is not designed to process 6 meals compressed into one sitting. This is why OMAD works best with whole foods that nourish without excessive volume. Liquid calories, sugar-heavy foods, and refined carbs sabotage the very benefits OMAD is meant to create. Then there's the human side of life. OMAD does not require isolation or rigidity. One of the smartest approaches is flexible or social OMAD, where the single meal shifts to align with family dinners, social gatherings, or cultural traditions. Biology responds to fasting duration, not rigid clock rules. This is where fasting separates itself from dieting. Diets demand obedience and punish deviation. Fasting teaches adaptability and awareness. The goal is not suffering. The goal is signaling safety, abundance, and efficiency through timing. Tell me in the comments, have you ever tried OMAD fasting? And how did it turn out for you? Sharing your experience in the comments, we all here learn from each other. So now the real question becomes not whether OMAD works, but how to do it intelligently. How do you structure that one meal? How long does adaptation take? And how do you retrain hunger hormones without misery? That's what we'll explore next. The first thing I tell patients is this: do not jump into OMAD overnight if you've been eating constantly for decades. That's not discipline, that's shock. Your hunger hormones, especially ghrelin, are trained by habit, not by need. Ghrelin rises when you usually eat, not when you are actually starving. That's why so many people think they're low blood sugar when in reality they're just conditioned. I usually start people by compressing the eating window gradually. You go from constant snacking to 3 meals, then to 2 meals, then to a 6-hour window, then 4. Eventually 1 meal feels natural. As this happens, ghrelin retrains itself. Hunger comes once, maybe twice, and then it quiets down. Most people are shocked by how fast this happens when insulin stabilizes. When it comes to the OMAD meal itself, quality matters far more than quantity. I want that meal to be protein forward because muscle is metabolic currency. Protein protects lean tissue, supports immune function, and prevents the body from adapting by slowing metabolism. I'm not talking about processed protein. I'm talking about real food that signals nourishment. Healthy fats are essential, not optional. Fat is what keeps insulin low and provides sustained energy after the meal. It also supports hormone production and brain health. This is why people who fear fat struggle with OMAD. Without fat, hunger returns quickly, and the body interprets the fast as stress instead of strategy. Carbohydrates, if included, must be intentional. Fiber-rich vegetables work beautifully because they feed the gut without spiking insulin. Refined carbohydrates undo the metabolic benefit by reigniting hunger and insulin swings. Remember, OMAD works because of hormonal stability, not calorie math. Another mistake I see is overeating out of fear. People worry that if they don't stuff themselves, they'll waste the fast. But digestion has limits. You are not meant to compress an entire day's worth of food into one sitting. Eat until satisfied, not until uncomfortable. The goal is nourishment, not punishment. Now let's talk about adaptation, because this is where most people quit too early. The first 1 to 2 weeks can feel strange. Hunger waves come and go. Energy may fluctuate as the body learns to access fat more efficiently. This is not failure. This is metabolic retraining. As insulin drops and fat access improves, energy stabilizes, mental clarity increases, and hunger becomes quieter and more predictable. This is also where hydration and electrolytes matter. When insulin falls, the kidneys excrete more sodium. Lightheadedness, fatigue, or headaches are often salt issues, not food issues. Supporting the body through this transition makes OMAD feel effortless instead of stressful. And finally, I remind people that OMAD is not a prison, it's a framework. If one day you eat 2 meals because of travel, stress, or social connection, nothing is broken. The body responds to patterns over time, not perfection in a single day. This is why I say fasting rewires biology through timing, not through suffering. When done correctly, OMAD does not drain you. It restores metabolic confidence. Let me end today's lecture by stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Because OMAD is not really about eating 1 meal a day. That's just the surface. What we are really doing here is restoring a biological rhythm that modern life has completely disrupted. For most of human history, food was not constant. We did not wake up to sugar, snack all day, and eat late into the night. We ate when food was available, and then the body was allowed to rest, repair, and reset. That fasting window was not dangerous. It was essential. Every system in the body evolved expecting periods of low insulin, low glucose, and high fat utilization. When you eat all day long, you never let that system turn on. Insulin stays elevated, fat stays locked away, autophagy stays suppressed, mitochondria become lazy, inflammation smolders quietly in the background, and then we blame aging, genetics, or bad luck when disease appears. OMAD, when used correctly, reintroduces a powerful signal. It tells the body that energy is available, but not constant. That single message changes everything. Insulin finally drops for long enough to matter. Fat becomes accessible. Ketones rise and feed the brain. BDNF increases, sharpening focus and mood. Autophagy turns on and begins cleaning damaged proteins and dysfunctional cells. Mitochondria multiply and become more efficient. Metabolic flexibility returns. This is not starvation. Starvation is chaotic, unplanned, nutrient-poor, and driven by deficiency. OMAD is intentional, nutrient-dense, and hormonally intelligent. The difference is enormous, and confusing the two has created unnecessary fear around fasting. I want to be very clear here. OMAD is not for everyone, and it's not meant to be done mindlessly. Pregnant women, growing adolescents, people with eating disorders, advanced frailty, or those on certain medications need a different approach. Biology always demands context. Balance matters, but for the metabolically unhealthy adult, the person struggling with insulin resistance, inflammation, brain fog, or constant hunger, OMAD can be transformative. Not because it reduces calories, but because it restores timing. And this is the core lesson I want you to take away. Your body is not broken. It's confused. We've been giving it non-stop signals to store, never signals to repair. When you change the timing, the body remembers what to do. You don't need perfection. You don't need punishment. You don't need fear. You need rhythm. Whether you practice OMAD every day or a few times a week, whether you shorten your eating window or simply stop snacking, you are sending a powerful biological message. You are telling your cells that there is time to clean, time to heal, and time to become resilient again. That's not a diet. That's biology working the way it was designed to. And once you understand that, everything about food, fasting, and health begins to make sense. Thank you for joining me in today's session. If you've enjoyed the value today, leave me a like on this video and hit that subscribe button if you still haven't yet. Also, if you think this video can be helpful to your loved ones, please don't be shy and share it with them right now, because you never know when you end up helping someone with the least of your efforts. Thanks again for staying till the end. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next lecture.